Here on KGRA Radio, welcome to the Richard Dolan Show, where every week we fight the good fight. Greetings. Here once again with Mr. Christopher Bledsoe. We have met for 3 previous sessions, really exploring this very fascinating case experiences. It's hard to categorize what Chris Bledsoe has been dealing with. Are they UFOs? Are they angels? He believes to some extent that these are angelic visitations, but there's definitely UFO components to what he's experienced as well. Are these the same things? Is there overlap or is there not? That's a whole other thing that we can maybe deal with sometime. But we've got Chris back again. Chris, welcome.
Glad to be here, Richard.
I've really been enjoying these conversations we're having. So just to do a quick recap, in the first part, you got into the river incident. Very well known at this point. Part 2, we did the whole aftermath of that MUFON investigation, which you were really hijacked, ambushed, as it were, with a polygraph test. Very unprofessional polygraph test, by the way, I just want to add. A few other things, government interest to some extent. You talked a little bit about that. I'd like to hear more, but you give us as much as you can. And then in part 3, we really focused on the experiences of 2012, centered on this being that has become known as the Lady. And that's an incredible encounter. By the way, she was presaged, you could say, by the 3 hooded beings who woke you out of your bedroom at 3 a.m. It's just an amazing story, and I'm very glad we got into it. And then you kind of finished off by discussing your feeling that this was all for a reason, and the reason actually was to get you out to tell your story. This is how you met Dr. Diana Pasulka, the author of American Cosmic, and she's made a very big splash in her own right. And you met with a lot of other people, some of whom you've talked about, others you have not talked about. But that's what we've gone over in these first 3 parts. I was hoping in part 4, where we are now, if we could continue the story and maybe discuss some of the other things of the last 7 years that you're able to talk about. Particularly, I'm thinking of other researchers that I personally know who have visited you. I'm thinking of Grant Cameron of Canada. I'm thinking of Chase Kloetzke and her husband Pete, who visited you for an investigation of that burning tree. I'm thinking of Dr. John Alexander. And I'm sure there are other people as well. All of them have had experiences that are quite remarkable. Can you lead us through these and any other related experiences that you feel are important?
Well, yes, there's a lot more in this, and these 4 alone could be 4 different shows, really, because there's a lot to it. But we can condense some of this.
Okay.
But there's much more. There's a lot more. But I guess we could start with. Well, maybe we could start with Grant, because Grant was probably the very next person that came into this. After meeting Dr. Pasulka and all the people that she introduced me to, which like Dr. Zerbas, whom has become very, he's like family now. But Grant, I get this call. Things start happening. Remember the lady said, if you do this, I'll guide your way.
Yes.
All of a sudden, magic starts going on. I could never get a photo, Richard, ever. I would go out the door, and believe me, I wanted photos. Nobody wanted proof more than me. All the garbage that this family had to put up with, and all the agony I went through, depression and everything, because my kids, I felt so responsible for them, and being embarrassed for my father. I can tell you, my middle boy, whom I love dearly, there was a while that he was kind of he didn't want any part of it, and he was kind of ashamed, I guess you might say. And it took my friend Jim Semivan to convince him to believe his father. He told him, son, you have no idea who's interested in your father. And so he helped these people are the people that changed my family's life. It was the people. What happened to skeptics, these people with agendas were cruel and hateful, and they're the ones suppressing the information to the world. It was these people like Jim that made our family back, put it back together, you might say.
I just want
And
to
they
point
come
out.
as friends.
Oh, I'm so
Say
sorry.
again?
I just want to point out Jim Semivan, of course, for many listeners are well aware that he's a prominent member of To the Stars Academy. That is TTSA. That's been very prominent in the news in the last few years. He's also very famously of the CIA. He's very highly placed within the CIA as well. And this just reminds me, this is something that you said a couple of episodes back, which is that your case was the first case that ATIP took on. Now, it is known to us that ATIP was created in 2007, and that, your experience at the river experience was January of 2007. And I don't think it has been widely understood that this is the case, but you are telling us Jim Semivan was interested in your case pretty early on, and
He,
right,
he
and
knew about it when
yeah,
it was published. Everybody knew.
right,
But
okay. So anyway, I just wanted to make
I
that statement. So please continue.
and I use his name because so many people get the wrong idea about this. They have no clue and they speculate. But about, I just want to say, it was he and others like him that came to my family and helped put it back together. They helped bring understanding and pull us together and kind of nurtured us back and made us feel like we were, somebody.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Actually, I mean, some of the things that he might have said or other people might have said.
Well, I met him through a friend at an event. Well, not an event. It was just a friend, not just friends of friends, and we met, and that's how it started. And we became family friends. It wasn't like the government was reaching out to me, and um, so we became friends. He and his wife, and
Mm-hmm.
that's all I can say there, other than we've been friends a lot longer than he and Tom have been friends. I've known Jim a lot longer, and I knew when Tom was coming on the scene.
You mean
But
Tom DeLong?
yes,
Okay, right.
and so I see Jim as a family friend. We spend Easter together at one Easter together, and vacations with our children. So, and he's an experiencer, and so we all find each other is all I can say. So, uh, with that said, there's a lot of others like that. Like Dr. Pavemeier came. He went to my mother and dad, and he sat down with them, and he said, "This stuff is real. You got
Uh-huh.
to believe your family, believe your son." So it was these people
I
that
see.
changed this family and put us all back
I
together.
see.
All the while, the UFO world or these skeptics out there were just in the community was trying to hammer us to death and ostracize us. And these wonderful people came more of an aid, I guess you might say. And I just give them the credit for that.
Well,
That's why I'm sitting
it's
here.
painful to say this, but the UFO community is filled with. There are some. There is a long history of this. It's not just now. It's not just 10 years ago. It's 20 years ago. It's 30 years ago. It's always been the case. There are good people, as we both know, but there is there's a lot of people talk about negativity. Well, there's a lot of it in this field, unfortunately.
Well,
So
let me say this when it comes to this type of people. I, I've been, um, well, let's just say a good old buddy from NASA told me a long time ago. He said, Chris, he said, some people you'll never convince. It doesn't matter if something lands in front of them and gets out and shakes their hand. He said, because there's really two types of people in this. One, they're skeptical to begin with, and then they begin to believe, or at least they listen. But basically, you got someone has an agenda. They're just vicious, mean people, and they're out to create havoc and debunk for whatever reason. They have an agenda, or they just don't have the mental capacity because of brainwashing for the last so many years, hundreds of years. They can never get past that. It just can't fit in their paradigm. So you have those two types of skeptics, and then you have people that are more evolved, that that are open-minded and really want to know a truth out there. So the skeptics can, I don't care about them.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Does not
Got it.
matter.
So let's move on to your experience with Grant Cameron, then, if you don't mind.
So 2013, okay, 2013 it comes along, and a lot of things are happening. I get a call from this person in Pennsylvania, and it's a guy by the name of Larry Fischella. Never heard of him, never met him, period. And he says he's putting on an event called The Gathering, this big party. And I think you and I discussed this before, and you were invited and didn't go. But
I declined, but yes, I knew a lot of folks who were invited, and Grant was invited, and a lot of other people went there.
so
Right.
this was supposed to be during. It had an initial date, but there was a hurricane that came through, tore up New York and Pennsylvania during that time. So they postponed it to later in that year. I'm not exactly, like maybe October of that year. But long story short, he convinced us to fly out. He sent tickets for my wife and I. And I didn't feel comfortable going. I still am very sheepish about meeting a lot of people because I'm a private guy. You can tell I've not been in this for popularity. I've not been in it because of all these horrible
Right.
people. So I actually called Dr. Pasaka and said, "Would you like to go to this?" And she agreed, and they sent her tickets, and we all went out. And because she's studying, she's a professor studying. So my wife and I and Diana goes out, and we get off the airplane. This person meets us with a sign, guide us to this bus outside. And when we walk in the bus, I sat down right beside this person named Grant Cameron. Never seen him in my life, never heard of him, but I take the seat right beside him. And we hit it off really good at that point. And I just thought the world of him. And you know how Grant is. Everybody likes Grant. He's just the nicest guy. And he's not shy. And so he became a very good friend.
There's nothing ever fake about Grant. Never.
Exactly.
I would
agree.
say that. Yeah.
So, but Grant said, he calls me and he says, "Hey, we're going to this congressional thing." They had this Congress hearing in Washington, and he said, "When I leave there, I'm going to Florida to a UFO conference. Would you mind if I stop by on the way?" I said, "Absolutely, come." And so we were excited. The kids were excited. Grant stops and stays a couple of nights, and weird stuff were happening. And it wasn't like a wow to him, because doors would open and dogs. I'd take the dogs and put them outside, and all of a sudden the door opens up in front of us, and here comes the dogs back in, and we watched it. But that was like, well, maybe he didn't quite close it, maybe the wind, this and that. Okay, I never made anything out of it other than that was weird because I just walked over and closed it good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we spent a couple of days together, and we're just having a lot of good times talking and sharing stories with him. And then he leaves. He goes to Florida, and he stays gone up 2 or 3 days. And he calls me on his way back. He said, "Hey, do you mind if I stop by on the way. I just didn't get enough pictures of that tree. I want to see more about the tree. And
Okay.
so I'm like, okay, Grant, well, I'll be waiting on you outside. Because he calls me about 10 minutes out when he's near. And so my kids were there, and I don't know who all was there, but it was quite a few guys, friends of the kids, or I'm not sure all who was there. It was a lot of people. So Grant pulls up to the backyard where we were standing. As a patio at the back of the house, and you could pull alongside of the house, and he does. He pulls up, gets out of the car, and we have our greeting and all. And Grant's a serious guy. He wants to go straight for that tree.
He really no
Yeah,
chit chat. He
yeah,
wants to get right to it. I believe
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So he leaves his suitcase in the car. He gets out. He's got his camera in his hand, and all the kids are around, and we're talking and just having a great time. So we walked way back to the back of the property, and maybe I'll send you a photo from the back door so you can see how far back it is out there. And he and I go out to this tree, and I don't know, we stayed out there a few minutes, and he's taking all these pictures, and this Labrador retriever dog, this black dog by the name of Nellie, whom I was just crazy over.
Mm-hmm.
She followed me every step. Everywhere I go, if I stop, she stops and lays down. If I walk, she stands up and walks. I mean, she's stuck to me like glue.
Yeah.
So she's laying on the ground beside the tree, watching us. Grant's doing his thing. We start back to the house, and she's right beside us, walking. We get to the patio where all the kids are. They're hanging out, and we stop at the edge of the patio. It's like it was a 20 by 20 concrete patio. So we were 20 feet or so from the back door of the house,
Yes.
standing on the concrete. And honestly, Richard, I can't explain it other than I don't think anyone, but I got the picture. And there's a lot of backstory to this that I don't like to talk about because it's very private for myself and others. But it opened my eyes to a different world, you might say. Something that led me to trying to help others. But long story short, I say this because I know that's what it was about. It wasn't evil. It wasn't an attack from something you can't see. It just happened, and it happened in front of us. Grant was standing there. I'm on the edge of the patio. Grant's between me and the back door, facing me. Nellie's laying beside my feet. We're
Mm-hmm.
only 4 feet apart, facing each other.
Yes.
But finally, after a few minutes conversation, I said, Grant, I said, you want to get your bags and let's go, you know, use the restroom or whatever. Let's find you. We were going to go in and have a seat. So the minute Grant turns and faces the door and starts towards the door, I'm walking behind him. Nellie stands up. And when she stands up, I see blood come out of her neck. I didn't know where it came from. I just know I saw blood,
Yes.
a long stream of blood shoot like when her heart pumped, this blood shot out of her neck.
Oh my
And when she,
goodness.
yeah, and when she goes by Grant,
And
she's just
she had been just fine. She had been perfectly fine, right?
perfect. We all
Okay.
were with her for a long time. They're all of us.
Okay.
So this blood comes out of her neck or out of her body and just coats Grant's pants legs. Grant's eyes were big as pie plates, not saucers, but
Mm-hmm.
they were like all of us were.
Right. Of course.
I saw it, he saw it at the same time, and the dog tries to beat us in the back door. You know, dogs will try to cut you off and get in front of you if they know your intentions, and that's where she was heading, in that door. So I see blood shooting out of her neck now, out of her body, and she's going in the back door. Blood's everywhere on the steps. It's in the house on the floor. And I ran in the door behind her and I tackled her on the floor. I'm freaking out.
Of course.
Grant's got his camera out now, and everybody's silent. I picked her up in my arms and I toted her out the back door and I laid her down on the patio, and I'm just absolutely, because you know me and bugs and animals, I don't want to hurt anything anymore. I just can't take it. I'm freaking out bad. I got my hand on her neck, holding her neck, and I could feel her heart beating and blood shooting up between my fingers. I
Yes.
look up at Grant and I said, "Oh my God, she's going to die. What do I do? I can't call 911. I'm going through all this stuff." Everybody's just absolutely just freaked out for a second, and I felt her relax. I shouted to my son, "Somebody get me a towel," because I'm thinking maybe if I put a compression on her, it would
Right.
stop the bleeding. That's what I'm
Yes.
thinking. So he runs in the back door, Chris Jr., and grabs a washcloth out of the bathroom. He comes back out the door. When I picked my hand up, put that towel back on her neck, within uh, 1 second, I felt her. I felt this energy I can't explain. I just cannot explain it. I lifted my hand up, and this gash that was this long, inch and a half, on the side of her neck right here,
You had
just
seen the gash.
everybody did.
Yeah. Okay.
This gash, this inch and a half long, just vanished right in front of our eyes. Vanished. And
That's
she stood
amazing.
up. She stood up and waggled her tail and walked away. It's a fact.
Unbelievable. But it happened.
It happened, and Grant Cameron was there and took the photos and witnessed it all. And there were several other people there. So immediately I called my science friends, these scientists. I
Yes.
shared data with them, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's a sign. You have got to do this and this." And I ended up working on some stuff that I'm not at liberty to say, but it led to cancer research, and it led to stem cell research, and among a lot of other stuff. And so there's reasons. And for the next, that was 2013. Immediately
Hmm.
from that point, I knew that was a sign. And so I began to help work with people. Had no clue what to do, I had no idea. But it didn't take long. A lot of people heard about it, and here they come.
Well, I hope you're taking notes about all of these things that have been going on because there will be a day, I certainly hope, when you are able to talk a little bit more fully about some of this behind the scenes activities. I really seriously hope that. But that the story, the encounter with Grant and your dog Nellie, that's remarkable. I had heard about it, but I'd never heard the detail that you just provided, and it's I don't know how to react to that except to say that is an incredible story, and the fact that Grant took the pictures, are those pictures available anywhere? Are they out?
Yeah,
They are out.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they're out.
Okay.
Grant has them. He's had them all along. And
Has he published
uh,
them? I mean, has he put them out anywhere?
yeah, he
Yeah.
put them on Facebook,
Okay.
and I can share them with you. I'll send them to you,
Well, I
and
should have seen
anybody
them,
in the
honestly. They,
world can ask
yeah.
Grant. Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll tell the story and verify it. So what happened after that? Um, I don't like to talk about because there's a lot of privacy in it, and I'm afraid if I don't want to sound boastful. I got to stay in my world of being humble and and if it meant all this meant to me, if I had a choice of what this was all about, I would choose to help those in need because I've had people with cancers, I've had people with a lot of things come seeking help, and a lot of folks know about it. I've been different places. I've been flown to different places to help people, very important people.
So you've done healing.
And I've been doing this for 7 years.
You've
That's
done
all
healing.
I've done. Trying. I don't say I've done anything. I don't do nothing. It's not me. It's something greater. It's something that came with this whole experience, and it all came after the lady came. She
Well,
said, "I will guide you and I'll help you," and then it all started. The pictures started after she came. Everybody started seeing this stuff. all the photos and all the videos and all the audio. I have audio. I have 350 audio clips and videos of beings walking. I have this, and it was taken by very important scientists.
Mm-hmm.
So it all came after the lady.
Chris,
All
hold
of it.
that thought. We're going to take a very, very quick break, and we're going to come right back. I am Richard Dolan here with Chris Bledsoe. We're talking about everything, and don't go away because we're going to be right back. Welcome back. I'm Richard Dolan here with Chris Bledsoe. Chris, thank you so much for all of this. This is riveting for me personally, and I have a feeling people listening feel the same way. You know, I was thinking that I just wanted to get into these various encounters with other people visiting you, but then suddenly you drop this bomb that you've been doing the healing. And you know, it's funny for me, this is not the kind of interview that I normally do. It's not that I disdain it or I hold it at a lower level. I've never done it. I've never gone into this. But here we are. You've got me here now, and you're talking about doing serious healing work since your encounter with the lady. Well, I'm very interested in that. So I'd like to include that as part of the discussion. If your game is that the next thing that we should be talking about, or I'm going to ask you to lead here. What do you think is the next important thing that we should know?
Well, like I say, when it comes to that part, I'm very extremely private about,
Right.
and I think that I have to be because I don't want to make this about me. It's not about me. It's about something greater that it just came with it. And the Nelly thing was to show, to tell me what it is I think I need to do. That's what I believe in science. I believe in confirmation, and I get it, and others get it. So it led me to Washington with certain people helping children, and it led me to many other places, people out west, and I have without boasting, never want to do that. I don't ever want anybody to think that I'm doing that, and so that side of it is a very private thing that I
Okay.
like to keep that way.
Sure. Well, I'm glad you mentioned it, and it's certainly very interesting. Can we talk about now? I had a conversation some years ago with Chase Kloetzke, who is a friend of mine. I've known Chase for many years, and she told me about an rather an incredible encounter that she had on your property. Her husband Pete was there. I know Pete very well too, and this was all part of an investigation. And things got kind of crazy. Like things got really crazy, and she had a sighting that I know affected her deeply.
Yep.
She's not here for this conversation, which is too bad. Maybe we can bring her in sometime. But can you just talk about it? You were there too. This is part of your story as well, and I wonder if you can just share this with us.
I'd be glad to. It actually wasn't on my property that we had this experience,
Ah,
although,
okay.
right. Chase has been to my house more than once. She did the study on the tree. She took the samples, and she's even been to my daughter's homecoming game when she won the princess in the 10th grade.
How
So
about that?
she and Pete both, and so we're very good friends, and we've done a few things like I've been with her on a couple of her investigations. But long story short, I don't know the date. She can tell you. It was after Grant sometime. Um, I would say. I can't quite remember the date, but it doesn't matter.
Mm.
I get a call from Chase one, I think it was a Sunday night. She calls me. I'm sure it was a Sunday night. And let me say this first. On Saturday night, I spend my life outside by a fire, or I'm always outside. I'm watching, and so many people come wanting to experience this that I've had people camping in my yard by, you won't believe,
Mm-hmm.
tents, sleeping in their cars, laying out under the stars, and my wife come home and there's 25 cars in the yard and people camping everywhere. So
Seriously,
I
my
had
God.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
Wow.
I
Wow.
mean, there'd be 100 here right now if I allowed it. I get so many people. You won't believe how many calls. So Saturday night, I was out alone sitting by the fire. And I see these two white orbs appear way up high. They just appeared, just like John Alexander saw, just like others. They don't fly over like satellites. Sometimes they do, but these appeared out of thin air. They just came on. And all of a sudden, here they come, straight down. And as they're coming down, they're coming at a speed which was incredible. And as they're coming down, one of these orbs turns to they're orange actually. And when they came on, they're orange, just like the river event. The same looks like
Yes.
the sun. They're way up
Okay.
high. So as they're coming down, one of the orbs reminded me of children, Richard. They act like they act like children. Is all I can say. Um, Very curious. Um, Very funny, I guess you might say. Sometimes I just get a laugh out of how they react sometimes. But this thing, they're coming down side by side, straight down from way up there. And the one on the left turns from orange and just flashes 4 or 5 times bright white. And then it goes back to orange. And then when they get down to the tops of the trees right behind my
Yes.
house, tree tops, these two big orange balls of fire are hovering right above behind my house. They're kind of sitting there and they're just kind of floating, just little up and down each one. Then the one on the right starts flashing white, and then they fire off to the west. It's on Saturday night. This is
All
not
right.
uncommon. I see this a lot. Others see
Yes.
this kind of thing.
Right.
So I get a call on Sunday or Monday, and Chase says, "Hey, do you know where St. Paul's is?" I said, "I sure do. My mother's from St. Paul's. It's just behind my house. It's west of me, about, I don't know, 8 or 10 miles from where I live.
Okay.
Um, my grandfather, they're all buried there. It's family. That's home, you might say. I went to the doctor there. I was born down that way in Lumberton. So I was raised in that town. Family's there." Um, she said, "Oh my God." I said, "Wait a minute, Chase, don't tell me. I got to tell you this first." I said, "Last night I was sitting out by the fire and these two orange orbs appeared and came down just above the treetops, and went through the whole story and they shot off to the west."
Yes.
She freaked out. She said, "Oh my God." I said, "They headed straight to St. Paul. So now tell me what you're going to tell me." That's when she got excited. She said, "You won't believe this. You won't believe this. I got this case of these ghost hunters." My hair is standing up everywhere. They're from Wilmington, which is an hour and a half away. She said, "This paranormal, I don't know the name, Wilmington Paranormal or whatever, they were ghost hunting this plantation in St. Paul. They were in this old plantation house and they had no experience, or they didn't claim it. So behind this house is a field, a huge house, and way back of the field, a couple hundred yards across that field, there is an old house back in there, which was the slave quarters from way back in the days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's abandoned. So they were in this little house, and it's like a one-room house. It's very small, just a little cabin. They were in there doing their ghost hunting thing.
Right.
This is Chase telling me. So they go out the back door, and out the back door of this house, it's just thick woods, but literally 10 steps or less from the back door is this ditch, pretty big ditch. There's no water in it. Trees actually coming up out of the ditch. They crossed that ditch, and this paranormal group, there was a nurse, there was a police officer, there was a prison security guard, and a child, and I don't know who all was in this group. But as they were there, they see these orbs that I described to Chase.
It's the same night as your
Same
sighting. It's
orb.
a Saturday night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So these orbs just streak across the sky and put on a light show for them. And all of a sudden, they find themselves missing time. This group of people
Uh-huh.
from Wilmington.
Could they
And
determine how much time?
I heard an hour or more. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can't. Chase has the file on that, but
Yeah.
and I'm just going by what I was told. But
Yes.
somehow or another, this thing led to where they saw this being peep around a tree at them. And they pulled their guns out and started shooting. They actually had guns with them, this police officer and this security guard, and they were shooting at this thing.
Wow.
And yeah,
Well, I remember
seriously.
Chase telling me like this was a moment of real terror
Yeah,
that they all
they
had.
were.
She had, and she said, she felt embarrassed because she goes in to do these investigations, and she's an intrepid kind of a person. I mean, she
Yeah,
just is. I mean, I've known this about her, but she always said, "Oh man, I just wish I hadn't gotten so scared." But apparently, everyone was terrified, and she claimed that she saw a being, like briefly, but
she
she
did.
said it was
I
absolutely
pointed it
crystal
out.
clear to her.
Yeah, she did. And we all went missing time, and they recorded it. So here's what happened.
So wait, you were with them at this time?
Yeah,
You
let's
were there?
back up now. These
Yeah.
people
Okay.
that were doing the shooting was the Wilmington group Paranormal.
Yeah.
They reported what happened, and Chase got the call.
Right.
So Chase calls me and tells me about these people shooting at this
So
entity
you
on
drove
the
out
property.
there. You went out.
So, so she flies in or drives in the following weekend and asked me to go with her. I said I'd be glad to.
Okay.
So I called a scientist friend, and he flew down, and he wanted to see it all, and he got involved, and we went through that day doing an investigation. Chris Jr. was with me. It was Chase and Pete and the whole group that was doing the paranormal hunting. We all met there. So that afternoon, Chase said, "Let's do a ghost hunt tonight. You want to come back and do a ghost hunt here?" I said, "Absolutely. I'll
Okay.
be glad." I've never done that. I had no clue. I didn't know what to expect. So here's Pete and Chase and these folks, the prison guard, the police officer. There were 8 people, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Jr. didn't go. It was me and 7 others that night. The scientist, he flew back wherever he came from. So it was about dark. I went home. Here's the crazy thing. I went home uh, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon with plans to come back just before dark. So I left Chase. I said, I'll be back later. I went straight to my mother's because mother was born there. I said, Mom, there's this big old plantation house in St. Paul's that all this happened at. You have any clue about this property? She said, yeah.
Oh.
She said, I know all about that property. It was actually my family, some of my family, like my grandfather's sister that owned that property. It's connected to this family. So I
Okay.
thought that was pretty amazing. So I come back just before dark, right about dark, and we start this ghost hunting thing. I had no clue. I'm just following a group of 7 people, right? So we go in the plantation house. We're upstairs, and I'm just following the leader. And Chase looks at me and Pete, they were looking at me right about the time I stepped in this door. And when I stepped in the door, I lost my balance. I just felt like something pushed me over, freaked me out really bad. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, Chase, I'm going to go outside. I'm not going to stay in here any longer. I'll wait on y'all to get done. So I go out, and I'm sitting out enjoying myself, kind of glad to be out of there. I didn't
Uh-huh.
like that kind of energy, right? So they do their thing, and they come out and they said, let's go across the field. We want to go to this old cabin in the woods. So we all walk across together. to this cabin back there, same place where this group of paranormal hunters were.
These are like all the bad decisions that you see in horror movies. You know, the teenagers hanging out in the campfire. Let's go off into the woods alone. You know, that kind of thing. This is what this
Right.
sounds like to me, except they're looking for trouble because they're looking for experiences. So I do get it. But anyway, keep going.
So we started across this field. We all got flashlights, right? And they got all this equipment. This group of paranormal hunters have cameras. They have helmets with cameras on. They got these vests on with all these instruments and EVP meters and everything. I'd never seen any of this stuff. We end up across the field in this cabin. Very dark and creepy place. And it's on the edge of the field. It's probably 10 or 15 feet into the forest. When you go across this big bean field, there's the forest. You walk 10 feet in, and then there's this old, dilapidated cabin. Floor's falling in, and part of it's coming down. We're inside this thing. And one of them hands me an EVP or one of these meters, and I'm holding it, and nothing, and they're asking questions. And we stand there a few minutes. 10 or 15, 20 minutes, and really nothing happened. So we walk out the back door, the same path that this paranormal hunters had the weekend before when they had their experience.
Okay.
And we all get to this ditch. So we step down in the ditch. Oh, my hair's standing up. We walk across this ditch, and we go straight into the forest, and we walk, and we walk, and we walk, and about 100 yards, we come to this power line, right? There's a big high tension power line. So we come out of the forest, and we're in this big area, this open thing. And we all go up and down the power line, and we're talking, and we're just having a grand time. And then Pete is, he's a navigator. This guy can navigate the world under the water.
Yes.
Submarine.
That's right.
No better. He's highly trained. So he's got this watch on and all this stuff, and we're deciding to go back to the cabin. So Pete takes the lead. He's going to navigate. So while we're in this forest and we're all together, I know because let's say I know that these things can put fear into you. They can put fear into you.
Uh-huh.
And, right? And if you run into something like this, they can actually erase your thoughts. So if you see something like it, they can reverse your thoughts where you never saw it. Just say I know this because I've been taught this. So as we're walking in the forest.
Wait, you know this because of what? You know this because you were told this, or you've experienced this?
Both.
Okay.
So as we're walking along, I'm singing a song. I'm singing a song so I don't reveal what I'm thinking. Because they know your thoughts, right? They know your thoughts. So if you don't let them know what you're thinking, maybe you might get to see something. And I'm giving you some information here, right? So as I'm walking, I'm behind these group of 7 people, and I'm watching them very carefully. And Pete's doing the navigating, and I'm right behind Chase. She's 6th person in the line, or 7th. I'm 8th, and I'm singing this song, and I see all of a sudden everybody starts getting afraid for no reason. And it got really freaky because one of them actually pulled his gun, and they're pointing in the forest. They're freaked out, and I'm singing my song. All of a sudden, I see these green eyes appear around from behind a tree, and I tapped Chase on the back, and I said, "Look." And as soon as I did, she sees it staring right at us. Oh my God, my hair is standing up everywhere.
So describe this, please. What was it that you guys saw?
Well, we saw this entity that was probably 6 or 7 foot tall, just kind of slowly look around behind a pine tree, just like that. And it was clear to see. It was 20 feet away.
Behind a tree, but it leaned out?
Out. and looked straight at us, at our group.
So
I
it was
saw it,
tall. What
Chase.
what else did it look like? I mean, I know it's dark. You're in the
This-
woods. I don't know how good the vision was, but could you see anything else?
We saw a very good silhouette of this being from about its waist up, and these glowing green eyes. They were green, like
Okay.
bright green.
And it was a
And
humanoid body, like 2 legs, 2 arms type of a thing.
yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, all this energy kind of dissipated after Chase saw it. Freaked her out. It scared us all. Well, it really didn't scare me because I'm not afraid of this kind of thing, right? I've seen it, not that, but I've experienced it, and I just wasn't afraid. I don't feel
Yeah.
fear of this,
Yeah. Interesting.
but
So
it did then.
what
It
happened?
really
Did
did.
everyone just take off and run?
No, because we're in the middle of the thickest woods you can imagine. I mean, it's thick. And we're in the pine forest in North Carolina, and we're halfway between this power line and this little cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know we got to navigate to this ditch, right? We're heading. Pete's guiding the way with his watch, and we only got 100 yards through the woods
Now,
to get to this ditch.
did anyone other than you and Chase see this being? Do you know?
I don't know who else might have saw it, but I know Chase and I saw
Yeah.
it very well, and
Okay.
I pointed it out. And
And this was
the
not that
other
far
people,
away. I got the impression from her that it was pretty close.
it was probably like on the other side of your living room you're sitting in there,
Okay.
20 feet maybe.
Yeah, that's
It was
close.
really
That's
close.
really
Really,
close.
we're in the thickest of the woods, right? These woods are thick, and this thing's really close. It freaked everybody out.
I'm sure.
And yeah, and Pete's guiding the way. And here's the crazy thing, Richard. We were halfway, 50 yards, my best guess, to this back porch where you got to cross the ditch, take 10 steps, and you're at the cabin. When we crossed that ditch, no joke, when we crossed that ditch, we're going to walk up to the cabin. When we crossed the ditch, we walked back out on the power line.
You
Now,
had
there is
turned
no
around?
ditch at the power line. Sir?
Wait, the power line I thought was behind you.
It was. We left the power line. We got 100 yards or less across this forest to this field where the cabin is. You got to cross the ditch, 10 steps, you're at the cabin.
Right?
It's only 10 feet in the woods. When we crossed that ditch and took 10 steps, we walked out on the power line. Pete looked at me, and I looked at him. Everybody looked at one another and said, "Oh my God, what just happened?"
What are
Now,
you
here's the
telling me?
thing.
Like you guys went back, you went in kind of a loop? That's what it sounds like?
No. Well, you would think that, but we walked 50 yards, and when we crossed the ditch, we walked out on the power line. So I knew that we missed time. I never said anything, but I knew we did because what happened, and there's about a 12 or 15-minute walk from one side to the other is all it takes. So we'd only walked 7, 8 minutes in. We had this encounter with this entity, this being. Then we walk out back on the power line, and I knew what happened. So I didn't say anything, but after everybody got over that, after we got back to the power line, everybody was freaked out really bad, especially Pete, because he's a world class. He navigates under the water, and it blew his mind really bad.
So you guys were right back where you started.
Yeah,
You were right back where you
we
started.
So
So you had to go
in
back
my
all
mind,
over again. You had to go back again, back to the cabin.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So we walked right straight back. 15 minutes, we were back at the cabin. After we stood there a while and discussed what just happened, and everybody was just really, it was
Now
can't describe.
was someone keeping track of the time, and if so, did anyone determine how much time was lost or missing?
Well, here's where it gets crazy. We get back across, we get back to the field. Nobody's really saying a whole lot. They're just trying to figure out what happened. So after a lot of that, and we all went home, And within a day or so, Chase calls me. She says, Chris, you will never believe what happened. I said, Chase, let me tell you what happened before you tell me. I think we lost about 12 to 15 minutes of time. 12 minutes is what I told her. She said, oh my God, how did you figure that out? I said, I knew it. I knew when we saw that being that it took 12 minutes, 15 minutes to cross that head of woods, and we ended back where we started. We had to have lost that amount of time. Well, she had the evidence because these paranormal ghost hunters had all this stuff on. They had all these helmet cams and all their instruments with them, and they were able to record the time that it took to cross it. And that's when Chase verified it was actually about 15 minutes that we lost.
How about that? Do you know what year this was? Are you able to recall that? I cannot recall if she told me. I'm thinking 2014, 2015 is what I'm taking a guess. Maybe 2015. I'd like to nail that one down. I think she knows. This might be, it's actually published in one book that I published by the author Ryan Sprague called Somewhere in the Sky, and he did interviews with a variety of UFO experiencers and people connected to the subject, and he interviewed Chase, and that experience is written up there. I think it's the only place that I know of where it actually has gotten any written treatment. He might have the year in there. I'd have to go check. But I'm going to guess 2015. Does that sound about right to you?
That's about right.
Roughly speaking.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, it
was incredible.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. So 15 or so minutes of missing time, no ideas as to what might have happened during that?
I have no clue. No clue what happened.
It's like you guys were picked up and put back. But what was confusing to me is that you said you have to cross the ditch to get back to the cabin, but that you crossed the ditch and were back at the power line. Am I getting that right?
Exactly right.
So I don't see how that would make any sense because the ditch is in a different location.
Yes.
So
ask Chase, ask Pete, ask the other.
Maybe you were put back and there was another ditch back behind the power line, and you went over that and you ended up at the power line.
We walked out in the very same ditch. When we crossed that ditch to the cabin, instead of the cabin being there, the power line was there. That's what I cannot describe the energy that was going on in this group of 7 other people, 8 of us, including me. I was calm. I wasn't afraid, but everybody else was just taken back.
Right. Okay, 15 minutes of missing time. I don't know. Hypnotic regression sometime. Someone should open that up. Well, okay, Chris Bledsoe, I think I don't know how much energy you have for future interviews, but if you're up for future ones, I'm up for future ones, and we can do this for a while.
Yeah, I'm game.
Good.
We still haven't touched John Alexander, nor quite a few other things that's taking place.
I would like to.
It's still ongoing. I mean, it's really more intense today than it has ever been.
I'm Richard Dolan. I've been very, very privileged to have this interview with Mr. Chris Bledsoe. You're listening to KGRA Radio, and I want to thank you for being with us during this time. If you want to see anything else that I am up to, you can always go to my site over at richarddolanmembers.com, where my wife Tracy and I are putting up new material all the time. But for now, that's all we've got. I want to thank you for being here, and let's remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other. Later.